Good morning, everyone. This is Nathan Lindorf with The Rational Independent. Today's going to be a brief one. I'm coming to you from sunny Reno, Nevada on a trip, and I'm late to get started. A little kerfuffle with the rental car company. It happens. Today's Reddit rant centers around an article on Politico entitled "The Bidens made $579,000 last year and paid a 23% tax rate." And the article basically just runs through those numbers, talks a little bit about the charitable contribution, who they gave it to, etc., etc. This is a fluff piece, so we're not going to give it a lot of a deep dive. Maybe I'll follow up on this, but I will simply make one point. According to this article, President Biden has submitted his tax returns for the last 25 years and has shown essentially that most of his income has come from his salary. If you really believe that that's all President Biden has made over his career in the Senate and as president and as vice president, that tax return encompasses the entirety of his net worth, his enrichment, his income from all sources. If you really think that that's the case, I got a bridge I could sell you. I mean, that's so ludicrous on its face. It almost beggars belief. If you think the President of the United States makes most of his money from his salary, that's not how this works. I will just add as a caveat, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'm not interested in diving into all the ins and outs and weirdnesses of high finance and globalist cabals trying to influence the world. And that's not what this channel is for, and it's not something I have a lot of patience for. If something's not provable, I'm not going to spend a lot of time chasing after it. Call me just a little too skeptical. However, I'm skeptical. And so if I look at this and I say someone who has the influence of a long career in the Senate, someone who has the influence of time as the vice president to influence countries under his control, look at Burisma, look at Ukraine, look at things he said out of his own mouth, and then time as actual president of the United States. And you look at someone like that, if you believe that that person has not taken the opportunity to use that influence, build his wealth and his power in other ways that are a little more subtle, ways that are not necessarily revealed on a tax return, that to me requires just as much gullibility as someone who believes every conspiracy theory that comes floating along. Both of those extremes are probably wrong. Not every conspiracy theory is true just because it's a conspiracy theory. And not everything the mainstream media and the narrative that is presented to you is true to the exclusion of everything else. Let me see if I can articulate this a little more clearly. This article in Politico makes the case that President Biden's entire net worth and income is transparently presented through his tax returns, and that most of his income comes from his salary. If you believe that, you are very, very gullible. At the same time, if you believe every single alternate theory or conspiracy theory about other ways he could have enriched himself, you're also probably gullible. The answer is somewhere in the middle. Some of these things, some of these extracurricular activities, for lack of a better term, are true. Most of them are probably not true. And just for those who want to be extra picky, I'm not even alleging that President Biden has broken any laws. If you're a clever person, you can enrich yourself without breaking any laws. That's why God made lawyers. He can be corrupt and not break the law, because unfortunately we live in a world where the law itself is corrupt, where the court system protects the guilty. To discuss that in detail is a whole other conversation, not one we have time for today. To my mind, there's no way $579,000 last year encompasses all President Biden's efforts to enrich himself. One last note as well. This is proved out in statistics. I should probably go look up some updated numbers for him. But there is a charity gap between Republican and Democrat, between left and right. The left consistently, predictably, donates less to private charity than the right does. And it's borne out here. The numbers are a little bigger than average, but let's normalize it to percentages. According to their tax returns, they donated, the Bidens, $20,180 to a variety of charities. It's a lot of money. But let's think about what that is. That is 3.5%. Historically, if you look at it, that is directly in line with prior years. And that's what the article says as well. President Biden gives on average about 3% of his income to charity. That's pretty consistent. And it's actually right in line with what the Obamas gave, with what Nancy Pelosi gives, with a lot of top tier Democrats. They give relatively little to charity. I want to dive in just a little bit. Of that $20,000, $5,000 was to the Beau Biden Foundation, a foundation that they control or have influence over. When it comes to actual church donations, for those of you who might be Christian and look at the world with a tithing perspective, we wouldn't consider all donations to civic organizations equal. I think it's probably worth breaking out the number that he gave specifically to the church, which is $2,805. That is roughly 0.2% of his total income. It's easy to see corruption in the world. It's easy to get frustrated by it, but that doesn't solve anything. But I will say that it's worth calling out those who spread the drumbeat of lies, because the average person would not believe these things unless they were presented in an intentional way in order to shape our perspective. So that's one of the reasons why I set my sights on the mouthpieces, on the people who speak these lies into existence. So that's my Reddit rant for today. Good luck out there.